Okay, okay.
Can we social distance a little bit, folks? I know standing together would be warmer.
Ready? Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Good afternoon. Welcome. Thanks for joining us for this announcement of a partnership between the county executive and the Montgomery County Public School Systems regarding school safety and student wellness. So glad that you are here with us. We are joined today by our partners with the Board of Education, Montgomery County Public School System, as well as County Council. We have a number of speakers here, so I will keep my remarks brief and allow our guests to speak. So we will start off with Mr. County Executive Mark Elrich.
Thank you very much. I will be briefer than I was yesterday at the climate change press conference. I want to acknowledge everybody who's worked to bring this together, the school system, the county council, our HHS department. I think this is important. I think recognizing problems as crossing, traditional school lines and community lines and beginning to act in a way where we start coordinating our efforts together is really going to be important for us in the short term and in the long term. The data points on the school system, just so people grasp the extent of this, is we have 208 schools, 162,680 students, 13,000 teachers, 24,246 employees, 26 sworn MCPD SROs, and our demographics are 32.4% Latino, 26.9% white, 21.4% African American, 14.1% Asian American, Pacific Islander, and 4.9% multiracial. So I want to talk a little bit about what we're doing today. Over the past year, mental health and well-being of our students has been tested like no other time. This has been difficult for everybody, but it's been really, really disruptive, especially for our children and for the families of the children. And while we know things are getting better, we know we're not done with this, but going forward, we have to deal with the issues that were raised, the problems created, and how we move forward from here. The pandemic has increased isolation, depression, suicidal thoughts and tendencies, child abuse, substance abuse, and general stress. So the pandemic has been much more than just COVID-19 and the illnesses around COVID. It's been all these other ancillary effects that really do affect many more people in our community, whether they get sick or whether they don't get sick. The worsening of the mental health issues have been especially a concern to us, and we know that there are concerns relating our current political climate, concerns about social justice, and for many students, how they are perceived by law enforcement, especially by SROs in their schools. We've also had many students who are food insecure, dealing with family trauma, and or balancing work and studying themselves to help their families earn money. And we have many students who are not just new to our county, but to this country, including many unaccompanied minors that we know will be coming into Montgomery County in the near future. We've been through this before. We need to make sure we handle it better and that we're on top of it before it happens, and that's part of what we'll be addressing today. This is a lot to handle for any adult, but you can imagine how tough this is for our students and their parents, the teachers, and our school communities. As a former elementary school teacher and parent, I'm still a parent, I guess, these issues have been a focus and priority since I was elected to office. And as county executive, addressing the mental health of our students has been on our agenda since day one. But over the last 13 months, we have all quickly realized that it's really now or never. This is our moment to address some of these underlying issues. And it's brought people together. It's put these issues under a magnifying glass. This is our chance to do something. So we're going to work to improve the educational environments and provide as much support for our students, and to do this as quickly as possible. Reimagining school safety and students' well-being is a collaborative between the county executive, the county council, and the Montgomery County Public Schools. This initiative will help us rethink and reshape public safety in our schools, provide the best social and mental health support for our students, and provide the right supports to the new students that we will soon receive. Today we are announcing the creation of an interagency committee to lead the implementation of a holistic approach to reimagining the safety and mental health supports in MCPS and in the county at large. We are expecting that we'll develop a letter of agreement or a memorandum of understanding to codify the agreements among the three agencies: the Department of Health and Human Services, Montgomery County Department of Police, and Montgomery County Public Schools. The agreement will address defining the roles of all the staff involved, identifying points to measure the impact of the program, and identify ongoing training needs for all staff. We will then develop an implementation plan and a timeline for implementation, identify financial resources needed to support programs, and create a communication plan that reinforces our implementation plans so that folks in the community, the students and the teachers and everybody understands what it is we're trying to do. The steering committee will be chaired by representatives of MCPS, DHHS, MCPD, and will include representatives from the public schools, DHHS, the council, MCPD, Board of Education, and students themselves. The role of the committee is to meet, to discuss, and to execute the expected outcomes, as well as provide updates on a regular basis to me, the county council, and the interim superintendent on the progress of this initiative. Members should wear a big hat, represent not just their areas of expertise and not just their organization, but give voice to broader interests rather than exclusively those of the organizations they'll represent. And the subcommittee should create as necessary to advance the work of this group in a comprehensive and efficient manner. The steering committee will deliver a preliminary report with actionable recommendations to the county executive and interim superintendent by June 15th, and a final report by September 30th. I fully expect that we'll be implementing some of these things as soon as we determine we're able to implement them, so everything will not be waiting for September 30th. I appreciate the collaboration. I'm really grateful for the partnership with the County Council and the Board of Education. Nancy Navarro stepped forward and, raised these issues. Gabe Albernaz, Will Juando, a number of council members came forward early on and said we need to address this. This is our chance, and I agree with them. This is our chance to make a lasting difference and to shift the focus of some of the work that we've been doing. The success of our education system has been built on the diversity, equity, but most importantly, the compassion of every adult for the young children and the young adults that we work with. And we aim to continue that. This cohort of students will be remembered in history for generations ahead, and their development monitored and followed by academics for decades to come. I can only imagine the studies that will be done on the impact of losing a year in school. In some areas, parts of the world, that's not abnormal, but in an industrial society, losing a year of school is a radical departure from what's happened, and I expect it to be fully studied. But while everybody else is studying it, we need to be reacting to it and dealing with it, and that's what we're going to do. I want to ensure the students, the parents, and the teachers that we will do everything in our power to make sure that they all have the supports and resources we can provide them to enable them to thrive. That's the work we're going to do. I'm really proud of this collaboration and looking forward to the work that'll be coming after this. And I want to turn to Council President Tom Hucker for a few comments.
Thank you, Mr. County Executive. Good afternoon. Thank you all for joining us today. I want to begin by thanking you, Mark, for your leadership and all my colleagues on the County Council, the ones who are here today, especially particularly Councilmembers Juando and Rice, who put a lot of thought into their legislation that is before us, and particularly Councilmember Navarro, who spent many, many hours putting together a framework that so much of this initiative is really based on, and has drawn on her decades of experience working as a a community activist and a board member, and an early education specialist. And I'm very grateful to our police department and the school system, and particularly President Wolfe and the members of the Board of Education that are here as well. The longer I do this, the more I really appreciate we all do better. We create better policy. We perform better for our residents when we're all working collaboratively, and that's what this initiative is all about. So many of us have had concerns about SROs for many years. I personally co-sponsored the bill to remove them last November and voted against their funding twice last year, always knowing that we needed an updated approach to school safety. I've long believed that SROs aren't the best way to spend our limited resources. We have many unmet needs in our schools, and they're not the best way to spend our limited resources. But I respect the diversity of opinion on this topic and the time it's taken to reach the consensus that we've reached today. I've met many times with our student activists on this, including even yesterday, and held town halls with them. Held a town hall last year where we talked quite a bit about the unmet mental health needs in our school system. And yesterday in the meeting, our student activists were explaining to me again the value of behavioral health specialists and why we need more of them in our schools. And I assured them I know a lot of behavioral health specialists. We're very lucky to have one heading our Department of Health and Human Services. And I'm actually married to one who works at the intersection of the court system and the Department of Behavioral Health in D.C. I've learned so much from our students, from our professional county staff, and from my own wife and her colleagues about the services that are available in behavioral health to students in D.C., right just a couple miles from our house. There's a lot more offered in other jurisdictions. I think we have a ways to go, but that shouldn't stop us from celebrating the partnership that we're here to announce today. As we work through this process, I'm really glad that students are going to be central to making the recommendations going forward, because for years, whether I was a community organizer or an elected official, I know I feel very strongly that we make much better policy for our residents and in particular for our students when our students, who are the consumers of that policy, are central to the policy making. And they're going to be central to the policy making of the recommendations in this area going forward, and I'm grateful to everybody who's worked on this for that feature. As we work through the process, I'm eager to see the recommendations, but there's 4 things that are very much on my mind. One is MCPS very much needs more bilingual counselors for our ESOL students. We have for a while. We need even more now that there's a surge of unaccompanied minors fleeing violence in Central America. Second, we need more counselors in our elementary schools. Some schools have up to 700 students with only 1 counselor. Third, we need more school psychologists. MCPS has never approached the recommended ratio for our schools, and that's on all of us, and we want to do better in that area. And fourth, we need more social workers. Data here and across the country has shown alarming trends in rising mental health crises by our students. There's rising anxiety, isolation, stress, all exacerbated by COVID and exacerbated by the rising poverty in our county and our country. We need social workers to help address that, as well as these other behavioral health specialists. And last, they all need to be working together. There was a 2016 Office of Legislative Oversight report that recommended that every school should have a behavioral health team ready to be called into action whenever necessary. That was lifted up as a best practice. We still don't have them in all our schools, and we should. So I'm really hopeful that that will be one of the recommendations of this team going forward. We're all in agreement now that removing SROs from our schools is in the best interest of our students, and we must simultaneously invest in the resources that address the mental, emotional, and social needs of our students. But I'm really excited that we got to this milestone today. I'm looking forward to reviewing the recommendations that come from this initiative and working collaboratively with all our partners to implement meaningful change during this budget season and as our students return in the fall. Thank you so much, and let me turn it over to Council Vice President Gabe Albornoz.
Well, thank you, Mr. Vice President. I started out my professional career as a youth worker, and for the last 20 years, with just 1 or 2 degrees removed, have continued to work in that space. I have never been more concerned than I am right now at the status of our children and youth in our community. As the county executive said, and as the council president said, this year has been trauma-filled for all of our youth. particularly those that have been disproportionately impacted by the pandemic. And so while we're here to discuss within the context of the transition of our SRO program, the organization that has been formed, the cross-collaboration between our professionals who are engaged every day in making up this really important and complex ecosystem to support our children, youth, and families, are tasked not just with thinking through the transition of our school resource officer program, but building a system that will address the needs and meet this moment in this extraordinary challenge facing our children, youth, and families here in our community. I have a tremendous amount of faith in the professionals both within our public school system, our Department of Health and Human Services, our community leaders, our youth themselves, our teachers, administrators, community-based organizations, all these caring individuals that want to do right by our children. And so I look forward to the recommendations of this task force. I look forward to participating as much as I can, and I know my colleagues will as well, in actively participating throughout this process and getting these recommendations as soon as possible so that they can be implemented as soon as possible. This is a critical moment in our history. People are going to be writing books about this generation of youth for years. And it's up to us right now to make sure that we get this right. So I look forward to seeing the recommendations, participating actively, and thank you all for coming today. And next, I am going to introduce our Montgomery County Board of Education President, Ms. Brenda Wolfe.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us. I'd like to thank the county executive for his steadfast commitment to our students in public education. We are grateful for his leadership and inspired by your vision to find new and innovative ways to address student safety and well-being. I also want to thank the County Council for their commitment in this work as county partners as well. The partnership between county leaders and the school system will support a successful program with the right supports internally in our school buildings and with the appropriate external supports within our school communities. The Board of Education is committed to the academic success and to the physical, social, and psychological well-being of every one of our students. Student learning is the district's core purpose, and we know that students perform better academically when they are healthy in mind, body, and spirit. The two go hand in hand to produce young people who are successful in school and in life. This is why interagency collaborations like this are so important, because we can bring our collective resources, ideas, and commitment to provide the best social and mental health support for our students. Providing relevant and holistic support for students will help ensure that they develop the necessary skills to become positive members of the school and broader community, manage their emotions, build academic and social resilience, identify and access support for themselves or a friend, and peacefully resolve conflict. The board is pleased to support the work of the Reimagining Schools Safety and Student Well-Being Interagency Steering Committee. We look forward to reviewing the recommendations of the committee that will reflect the vision of a commitment to providing comprehensive social emotional support to the students. Thank you, and I'd now like to bring up our student member of the board, Mr. Nick Asante.
Hi, everyone. Technical adjustment here. I forgot to introduce myself earlier. Caroline Sturgis, an Assistant Chief Administrative Officer with the County Executive's Office. We do have a slight change in our agenda. We will hear remarks from Councilmember Nancy Novato.
Thank you, everybody. Well, this is really a very important day. This is an opportunity to meet the moment. The great news about this particular day is that we have precedent here in Montgomery County in terms of coming together with different agencies, coming together with the community, everybody joining forces to put forth a comprehensive and holistic approach to support our students. All of us understand what we're facing. All of us understand that the trauma, the stress, the needs that our students will be presenting with when they come fully into the school building are going to be quite complex. We also know that we have a school system that is 73% children of color. So issues around racial equity, issues around cultural proficiency are going to have to be front and center as we seek to make a bold investment and take some bold steps to enhance all of those already existing services, but also do it in a way that meets the needs of our students throughout. So I am really pleased to be here today. I had shared with colleagues, with the executive, with the school board, the school system, the police department, a framework. This was early in February that really touched upon all of these issues, and I'm pleased that now the real work begins to make this a reality. Again, it will take very strong collaboration, but I think that when we're finished with this particular approach, we will be able to fully see and recognize in our school buildings a place that honors the mental health, the positive youth opportunities and potential, where our students are seen as assets and are not approached through a deficit model. And that is very exciting for a place like ours, for a school system like ours that has led the nation on so many different ways. So as a former member of the school board, now as a county council member, I am so thrilled about this opportunity and look forward to the recommendations. And I really want to appreciate the leadership of the board and everyone who has really stepped up in this particular instance. Thank you.
Next, we will hear from the Director of Health and Human Services, Dr. Raymond Kroll.
Good afternoon. This pandemic has given us an untold level of trauma and loss over this last year. We have witnessed death and disease like none of us in our lives have ever experienced. It has also shown us a level of our darker side in the country in terms of the levels of racism and hatred that can be thrown around in times of stress. The ongoing safety and health of our youngsters, or our young residents, has rolled on in the midst of all of that. In the year, and underneath that, and sometimes without our notice, without our paying close attention to it, in the year that since the pandemic began, we saw emergency room admissions for suicidal ideation and emotional challenges for our young people drop initially by almost 60%, but then they started coming back up to levels that they were at in 2019 and beyond. And I think that they will continue to come back. It's a sign of the things that are going to ahead for us, I think. It's affecting all ages, and to Councilmember Navarro's point, it's affecting the race and ethnicity of all of us, all across the entire county. We're seeing in the crisis center, on average, before the pandemic, 2,000 referrals a year from the schools for children with emotional challenges. Those challenges are not just about assaults or abuse, but about suicidal ideation and emotional challenges and social challenges. All of this is pointing to old and new things for our youth, and challenges for our youth. And in the aftermath of this pandemic, we're going to be dealing with the recovery for a long period of time. This last year, reimagining public safety, reimagining mental health and supports in our community has created an opportunity of change for us. The county executive, the county council, all of us have listened to the voice of the county about what we need to do. We need a different way of supporting our youth and promoting their safety and well-being. So this work group that the county executive and MCPS and the council have asked us to stand up and given us guidance on is intended to try to take the things that we have been doing, the old things that we have been doing, some of which work really well, but to make better use of those existing resources, and to innovate and create new ways of ensuring safety and promoting wellness in our school-age youth. This work group, this action team that I'm thinking of it as, will consist of the folks that you've heard county executive talk about: school system, health and human services, the police department, youth, council staff, but also providers in the community, and members of the public that are interested in this process that will help us to craft both the short-term solutions that we need to put in place and the long-term solutions. We have things in play now that are operating now that we will put in play this year and into the coming and over the summer and into the fall. But our goals here, our objectives are to ultimately divert youth from arrest and entry into the justice system in any kind of way possible, to use restorative justice practices that are in operation in the school system and around the county to try to find non-punitive approaches to restoring peace and harmony when things get out of hand, to provide a coordinated array of behavioral health services that might be schools and through our school wellness centers, our health and wellness centers, through outreach from our staff members that are in HHS and other providers, as well as crisis response and mobile response when needed. We also have school well-being teams that have been in operation in the school since the pandemic. We want to enhance those, give them a chance to connect and coordinate resources so that we have the ability not just to manage the challenges in the schools, but to manage the challenges and the problems that our youth have beyond the school walls. We know that the challenges our youth face don't stop at the school walls, and sometimes they start outside of the school walls. So we've got to be out in the community working on family interventions and community interventions in partnership with our trusted providers in the community. We have a street outreach network that does work continuously with students in the community. We want to strengthen that and make sure that it is well coordinated and integrated with everything else that we're trying to do. We have to engage our youth in the community in ways that resonate and make sense for them. I think that I'm a psychologist, and I know that we have to think about this in a very different kind of way. That how we promote safety and well-being is not just about behavior. It is also about how we think about them, how we respond to them. As a therapist, I know, as a psychologist, I know that therapy isn't the only thing that's therapeutic, that there are caring individuals across this system that we have to now put in place so that they can interact with our students in ways that promote safety and well-being and promote their healthy development. Our goal is to promote health and well-being, to support schools as a safe learning environment, to respond to and prevent and resolve conflicts as they arise in a way that creates health and promotion, and to provide ongoing support for those who need it. This begins for us by doing things differently, by listening to what our students are telling us and recognizing and understanding, as Councilmember Novato said, that they have strengths and assets that they bring to this table and bring to school. We can use those and build on those to help them to perform better in school, to get through school, to have an environment, to create an environment that is a great place for them to learn and a safe place for them to learn. So we're looking forward to this work. Thank you.
And with this work, we are pleased to have student representation be involved in it. Today, we are joined by a student member of the Board of Education, Mr. Nick Asante, and he does have to go back to school, so come on up.
Good afternoon. My name is Nick Asante, and I'm the student member of the Board of Education. I'm excited to join county leaders this afternoon to discuss student well-being and safety, a topic that's been a critical part of my platform as a student member of the board and a discussion that's been championed by the student voice all across our county. As we all know, the COVID-19 pandemic has had a tremendous impact on MCPS students and has caused significant disruption to the 2019 to 2020 and 2020 to 2021 school years. While many students have started returning to school buildings, we've spent more than a year engaged in remote learning. And because of this, many students have experienced various levels of loss and instability as a result of the pandemic and are in need of additional supports. The announcement of this partnership is right on time and will play an important role in addressing the needs of more than 160,000 students while setting a nationwide precedent. Thus far, the district has done tremendous work addressing the social emotional needs of students and families through its Be Well 365 initiative. From student psychoeducational lessons to mental health awareness weeks, mindful moments, virtual school counseling, grief groups, and more, MCPS has been at the forefront of ensuring that our students are well accounted for. Also, over the past year, there's been much debate about the School Resource Officers Program, as students have engaged in lots of different conversations surrounding the issue. The student experience with the presence of police in schools has been a topic of discussion for a lot of students over the last couple of years as well. The data clearly demonstrates that there are disproportionate rates of suspensions and expulsions in MCPS for Black and Latino students. While MCPS has been growing restorative justice practices in cohorts of schools to address student needs and incidents to shift away from a punitive culture of restorative justice, it's important that we continue to do more. We know that there's much to do, and the board is committed to supporting efforts that will help the school system reimagine public safety in our schools and provide the best social and emotional and mental health support for our students. I want to thank the county executive and county council members for launching this initiative. I'm confident that it'll bring positive additions to the work being done in the school system and once again set a nationwide precedent for many to follow. Thank you so much.
Great. Next, we will hear from our partners in County Council. Next is Councilmember Will Jawanda.
Thank you very much. I'm really happy I was able to go right after our great student board member, Nick Asante, because this is really a big day for students. They organized, they got together, they made their voices heard in the midst of what is an unimaginable set of pandemics, the health pandemic, the economic fallout, the racial and social justice. Here we stand just days after the verdict in the Derek Chauvin case. They organized and they focused their energy and they went to school and they worked hard and it wasn't easy. And next year, as a result of their work, not only will there not be police officers in schools in an enforcement capacity, we have come together at this interagency, the school board, the county council, the executive, to work together to build supports, social, emotional, mental health, wraparound services after school mental health that are going to help all students. And that we know through research, if done well, reduce disparate discipline, reduce the need to engage police in an enforcement capacity, and that's going to benefit all students. So it's a big day for our county. It's a big day for the students that organized. And I want to thank the county executive. I want to thank all the partners. This task force that Councilmember Rice, who you'll hear from momentarily, and I pulled together in collaboration with the school system will be student-centered. Over half of the students will be members. They will make recommendations to this interagency working group that will then implement what we need to do. We'll take up at the county council throughout this budget process and into the fall whatever investments we need to make sure we support students. There will be more school psychologists. There will be more social workers. There will be more counselors. That will come out of this process. It's a historic day for the county. So I want to thank Nick. I want to thank President Wolfe. I want to thank the county executive. I want to thank Councilmember Rice, Navarro, Albernaz, Glass, Hucker, who are here, and our partners throughout county government, the HHS department. This is going to be a big win, a historic investment for our students, and we're going to see good things come out of it. So thank you very much. It's my honor to bring up my colleague, Councilmember Craig Rice.
Well, thank you very much, Councilmember Jawando. Many of you know that this has been an evolution and a journey, one in which I fought for a very long time to make sure that our school resource officers were folks who ensured the safety of our students. And as we understand the myriad of challenges that face our students, you heard from some of our previous speakers, you heard from Nick Asante, who's a student board member, we know that our students and our schools have evolved. And so our programs need to evolve to make sure we're still supporting their needs. And that's what this is. This is an opportunity for us to steal a phrase from our President of the United States to build back better. We're going to create a program that is much more robust when it comes to ensuring the support of our students and our children in our schools. We're going to make sure that programs are there that are supportive of their needs, that give them opportunities that they have been denied before. All of these kinds of things are incredibly important to make sure that we're fighting against the scourge that we see, the racism that still rears its ugly head throughout this country. And there is no department within our governments that is immune from that. Whether it's our school system, whether it's our departments in county government, we see it each and every day. And we need to make sure that we have programs and policies that are in place that make sure that we minimize those effects on those that are the most vulnerable. And those are oftentimes our students. And so from that perspective, I'm really excited about the work that we're undertaking because I know what it means for us. It means that we will be able to ensure not only our children's safety, but also their emotional and mental health and well-being. And that is what's most important. When we think about what we do as parents when we send our children to school, we of course want them to be educated, but we also want to make sure that when we send them out that door, that they come back the same way they came, that they left. And that is that they're certainly supported, that they're nurtured, that they understand that people are there that care about them and want to make sure that they can succeed. We can build a system that makes that happen. And I look forward to the stakeholders of this interagency committee working together with the task force that's under the leadership of Montgomery County Public Schools. I really want to thank everyone for their partnership and for collaboration. The only way in which we could have done this and accomplished this is by us all working together. And so again, from our leadership from the Board of Education to our Department of Health and Human Services, the county executive, the county council, and of course those in the community who stood up and said, we need to build a better system. We listened, we heard you, and we're going to make it happen. Thank you.
We will now hear from Councilmember Evan Glass.
Good afternoon, everybody. We are here, quite frankly, because we want to make sure that every child feels safe while they're at school and that they have the mental and emotional support that they need. And we know that our students need that support now more than ever. They needed it before the pandemic, and they certainly need it as we return to school in this new normal. And the only way we can achieve that is by working together. And so I'm so pleased to be here today with all these pillars in Montgomery County government as we work to tear down the silos that have stopped this progress before. And so as we work forward, working with the task force and the working groups, hearing from more individuals, I know that we are on this precipice of change to make sure that everybody feels safe in school. And I particularly want to thank the student member of the board, Nick Asante. Not only congratulate him for his recent acceptance into Cornell, but for being the voice and the champion of the students, because that's what this is all about. That is who I've been listening to, hearing directly from the students about what they need to make sure their lives are fulfilled, that they feel safe, and that they have the support from the adults here in county government.
All right, and our final speaker is our Police Chief, Marcus Jones.
So good afternoon. Today is a special day. I want to thank the county executive, Mark Elrich, for allowing us to be a part of this change. And I look forward to the partnership with Dr. McKnight, the interim school superintendent, as well as Dr. Raymond Kroll, in order for us to work as partners, to bring our teams together, to look at programs that are going to help our students. We are, from Montgomery County Police, are concerned about the students' safety and health and welfare as anyone else in this county. That is undoubtedly so. Our school resource officers have always had the students and the staff of Montgomery County Public Schools at the forefront of their concern. And that is still the same today. And I believe, based upon all of the passion and the hard work that they've done over the years, that will remain to be always deep in their heart. But we know where we are today. We will be looking at whatever changes that will be for the betterment for all of our students. And with that being said, I want to make sure that the community knows this, that Montgomery County Police and all of our law enforcement partners are truly committed to making sure that all of our schools in Montgomery County are safe, all of our students are safe, and all of our staff members who work there, who are committed each and every day, are safe as well. And that will never change. That is our primary mission, and I can promise you we will do our very best to provide the solutions that we think will help to make Montgomery County a better place to live. So thank you very much.
All right, we have approached the end of our agenda, and we will be taking questions soon. But before we do that, we want to hear final remarks from our county executive, Mark Elrich.
So I think you've had an opportunity to hear from a wide variety of people who are going to be engaged in this work. And I just want to emphasize one of the things that I think is most important. I spent 12 years on the council, and we spent a lot of time looking at school system data. And the question was always, why the gap? What are you going to do about the gap, and how are you going to fix the gap? Always treated as a school problem. The reality is that these problems are intersectional. The issues that students bring to the classrooms, the situations they live in, and their lives are not things that are insignificant in how they respond as students. It's hard for people who are hungry to sit and be attentive. It's hard when their families are moving, when they face eviction and uncertainty about where they're going to live. It's hard for those students to be the kind of students we want them to be. And so these problems aren't just school problems. School performance is not solely a school issue. It is an underlying social issue, and that's why it's important that we're bringing together DHHS as part of this, because we've got to approach these problems holistically. We have to look at what happens in the school. We have to think about what happens in the community. And we have a responsibility to fix it comprehensively, not point to one group or the other and say, you're not doing your job, but to get an understanding about what we need to do a better job. And what is the real role of county government to making sure that students are successful in school and successful in life. And that's what we're trying to get here today. I spent 12 years on the council, 17 years as a school teacher. It's been a long time since we started talking about together what we do to make this a better county. It's not a school issue. It's not my issue. It's our issue. And I just want to leave you with that. Thank you.
Folks, that concludes our agenda for today. We stand ready to answer any questions you may have. You heard the question?
Sure. I think the question was how the various task force and steering committee work together. I tried to mention that a little bit. So the task force that Councilmember Rice and I called for last week, or maybe it's 2 weeks ago now, we had the two bills on SROs. One was pro, one was against, and we came together to say we agree that there should not be police in schools in an enforcement capacity, and we should instead be focusing on the social health supports. We also agreed that putting together a student-centered task force to make recommendations to this entire interagency group would be helpful. So that is they work together. The task force will convene in partnership. The school system is going to be moderating that. It has a co-chair from HHS. We'll be announcing those members shortly, probably on Monday. That will convene, give recommendations over the summer, and then that will feed into this interagency work group process, who will have to implement, and certainly will have other operational and other recommendations themselves. But this one's really student-centered. It also include the unions, the PTA, and parents. It's more externally focused as opposed to the internal work group, so they'll be working together.
And I'd add to that, as I was watching this discussion develop, and many people had ideas for what to do. I mean, my reaction, was I was going to supplement the budget with social workers. But we hadn't had a conversation with the school system. And council members are proposing to add money to the budget to add this person or that person. When I sat down with the school system and we had our first meeting, we started talking about this, I didn't realize how much that they were thinking about and trying to put in place. But like everything else, their budgets are limited, so they were putting together stuff within the constraints of the existing budget, and that wasn't enough. It wouldn't have made the council happy, wouldn't have made me happy, and probably wouldn't have made them happy, except that when you learn to live with budget limitations, you're happy with what you get. And that's why I thought bringing everybody together, this is why a lot of us have referred to this as a moment. By bringing everybody together, we had the opportunity to understand from the school system what they think they need and where this needs to go, and bring everybody else who wants to do the right thing to bring those efforts together so that we just don't throw money at it, because people would say we can be really good at throwing money at things, but we actually put forward money as part of a thought-out program that will be developed in coordination with the people who have to do it. If I gave money for 24 social workers and said go to the schools, I have no idea, frankly, what they would have wound up doing with them. And so our instincts were good. The collaboration is what's going to make those instincts effective.
So the question that I heard was, has the school board reached a consensus with the county executive that SROs should not be in the schools? In the way that they are now.
Well, as you know, the school system has had an SRO task force working on this issue, and they're scheduled to come back and report to the board on May the 11th. And what we would say is that we are working in partnership with the county executive and the county council, that the SROs are not in our budget, but that the law does require some sort of law enforcement be available to us, so that we will be looking at what we need to do. And mostly we will probably be looking at the current MOU that we have to see how we can make adjustments. We have no problem with the current arrangement, because we do believe that that there has been issues in the building, but that we do need to have a clear sense of who will be coming into the building, if I'm clear about that. In other words, we'd like the sort of community approach, and that there is an assigned group of officers assigned to a cluster, so that we know who is coming in our schools. Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, so the question that we're hearing is there any update regarding the unaccompanied minors?
So Raven, you might be able to answer some of this, but we don't know the total number. We do know that they're coming. It should be coming shortly, apparently. So we're trying to make sure that the handoffs are better than they were last time, and that our supports are in place at the beginning of the process, so we're not scrambling around and trying to analyze why we don't have the connections. We had meetings in the last go-round trying to figure out what went wrong and why we didn't have the connections we thought we were going to have. So we're trying to get ahead of that now, so that when they do start coming here, we're able to handle this more smoothly. I'm a big believer that the sooner that these new students are integrated into the system and have a place that's stable and they know what's going to be expected and what we're going to be doing, the easier it's going to be for these students to be successful. The more that we struggle to put our resources together, the greater the challenge it's going to be for the people we're trying to help. And Raymond, do you want to add anything?
So we're aware from our previous experiences with members of the community that when unaccompanied minors come They come in a couple of different ways. They come through the Federal Health and Human Services because they've been detained at the border and are being processed and evaluated and assessed and supported at the border, but then transition to where they're on their way to. So our goal this time was to get out in front of this before we knew they were going to come in large numbers to do a few things. One is to promote, to create a reception opportunity for folks to make sure that when they arrive, when these young children arrive at our borders or at the county, that we're here to make sure that they have the resources that they need, and that we're working with them to try to get them engaged into the resources and get them back to their families, to do some family reunification where necessary, to make sure that they are linked to with navigators to help them understand and adapt to the community and to the culture that they're in. We want to facilitate family services, support services. We want to make sure that as they come through, as they arrive, that they're engaged with the school system in a timely fashion so that they can get the services that they need over the course of the summer, so that come the fall, they're ready to participate in the school system. And then the last thing we want to do is make sure that we protect against the safety and protect the safety and security of those folks who are coming into the county, to make sure that they're not discriminated against, to make sure that they're not picked up and trafficked, to make sure that they're not recruited into gangs or exposed to violence. So our goal is to really now be out in front of this. We've had a task force that has been meeting for several weeks. We've been talking with the federal government about the Office of Refugee Resettlement, and we're bringing our partners together that were instrumental in the previous waves of unaccompanied minors that have come into the county, this time to make sure that they're ready to engage and to support these young men and women as they come to our county.
All right, everyone, thank you so much. We have reached the end of our hour. Really appreciate you joining us today. Thanks.